All right, guys. Out on another scouting mission today. Got some more public land here in Kansas. I've never been on this property before, but drive by it all the time, and just looking at it from a map, it just seems to be like one of those overlooked spots. So I think it's worth coming in here and seeing what it's about. The property on the other side of the road gets a ton of pressure. So could be one of those deals where this is just a little overlooked spot. And I think when you're hunting public land, that's kind of a good thing to try and focus on and key in on, is just finding those little pockets where there's not a lot of pressure and a big buck could kind of just hole up in. And that's kind of the goal today. We're going to start right here off the road. There's a good creek that runs through it, and it just kind of looks like thick brush and just kind of a tangle, just a mess. So I'm sure there'll be some good bedding in there. This property is pretty unique. It's got a lot of different habitat types and things like that, like the creek running through it, and then there's it kind of opens up onto this ridge, and then on the map there's just this open barren spot. All this public land is mined land, so I'm just thinking it's one of those mineral sites or something like that. But then there's also some lowland and some cattails and things like that. There's just a lot of edge, a lot of diversity. So you can probably hear our truck. We're right off the road here, so we're gonna dive in and see what we can find right off the road. That'd be ideal, to find a little overlooked pocket right here off the road where a big buck could kind of live underneath everyone's noses. So that's what we're gonna do. And then if we find some, that'll be really good, but if not, that's fine too. We got the rest of the property to look at. But we're just gonna take our time, come through here and see what we can find. Okay, so here's the creek, and then the road's that way. We kind of came through that tangle. There's not really much over there. There's a couple crossings, crossing the creek going up into here. But just thinking about this from a deer's perspective, this is pretty good stuff, pretty good cover, but especially in early season, when that sun is hitting you like this, they're not going to want to bed on this side. So I think if there's any bedding along this creek, it's going to be on that side in the shade. So what we're going to do is going to follow this creek, follow this edge. We're going to cross down there and then kind of loop our way back, see if there's anything in here, and then work that way and out to the rest of the property. Not a bad rub right here. Looks like you got pretty much all around the tree. Creek's right there. Okay guys, we just came up from the creek, up this little hill, and this is probably the highest point on the property, or at least close to it. And walking up here, found a really nice buck bed. Couple tracks right there, and then right here you can just make it out. It's kind of worn to the ground. And then another bed right here, and there's quite a few beds on this little high point right here. But if you come out here, you can kind of oversee a lot of stuff here. Here's some of that lowland wet stuff. There's a bunch of cattails out there, and then you can't really see through all the woods, but there's a human access trail that way too. So this is a good spot for a buck to bed. Alright, another little good bedding spot. There's a bed over there. There's a bed through there. There's a pretty decent bed right here. Just on the back side of this little hump. Overlooking all this. Which I guess that's supposed to be full of water. It's all dried up. There's quite a bit of tracks crossing there, so pretty interesting spot. Just high stem count area. Got something to his back. Overlooking the open. Okay, here's that spot I was talking about earlier where it's just kind of an empty, barren spot on the map. I'm not sure what they're using it for. There's tire tracks in here. I don't know if they're using it to dig up minerals or whatnot, but this spot over there on the other side of the creek and then off the road there it's kind of a dud. There wasn't anything there, which is fine, because in a way it kind of helps you focus on the other areas of the property. And then same for this spot here. It's just kind of a barren spot and it goes on a ways back there, so you know the deer aren't going to be there. So we're gonna go across this little ridge system here and focus on the other side of the property. Okay guys, got into some of these cattails here and we got just a miniature point jetting out into those cattails, and I'd be willing to bet there's probably some bedding on the tip of that point. We got a rub here, pretty good rub right here. Go this way. Another rub there. Yeah, looks like a bed right there. Probably hair in it. Yeah. Some hair right there. There's actually quite a bit of hair. There's quite a bit of hair in here. Usually, find a bed like this, usually there's a rub in the bed. That's kind of a hard tree to rub, but you can see right here, he twisted that off. There's probably I see another bed. There might be a bed right there, but there's definitely another bed right here. Couple pretty worn out beds right here. Okay, this area is pretty ripped up. There's a rub right there, and also the side here. It's actually pretty good bed. There's poop in the bed, there's hair in the bed. He ripped that up. That might even be a bed through there too. Might be some more stuff up through there. Yeah, this edge is littered with tracks. There's good bedding back in here. There's real good bedding right here. A few rubs and a few scarring on these trees. But yeah, this whole little pocket right here is good bedding. Alright, so that little area, it's great bedding cover, but I just popped out on the other side and onto another access road. What I'm starting to learn is the property. There's a lot of man-made roads and access roads, and whatever's going on with it, the conservation people are definitely invested in it. There's a lot of stuff going on this property, but That's a good little spot. I don't think, because there's access roads on both sides of it, I don't think it's going to hold anything big. And I didn't see any huge rubs in there, so we'll mark it, but we're just going to keep moving on and see if we can find something better. Golly, something got a hold of this tree. That's a pretty big rub right there. It ain't very high up the tree, but still a big one. Dude, I don't even know what I'm looking at. There's just this giant concrete slab. There's trees growing in between the cracks of it somehow. There's even a few old rubs going down this trail. This property's crazy. Alright. Got our first shed of the year. Might be a set, huh? Yeah, look at that. Not bad, not bad. Heck yeah. Pretty cool. I mean, when you think of Kansas, this is kind of what you picture. Pretty cool spot to find some sheds. Alright, we kind of made a big loop. We're going to head back to the truck now. Eat some lunch, and then most likely circle back around to the other side of the property and come in from that way. And just finish scouting this property today. Alright, we're on the other side of this property. I just went through a thick and nasty tangle back that way. Saw a lot of sign though. There's a lot of beat down trails, a lot of rubs. Getting into this spot, came across this. Looks like there used to be an old tree stand, but it stood out on the map, but you can see a couple of the tops of the cedar trees. But there's kind of a ridge that runs this way, and it's just a ridge lined up with cedar. So I don't know, it stood out. We're gonna go down this ridge and see if there's anything to it. But other than that, it's just been me walking through a thick tangle of all kinds of briars and brush and all that stuff. Dude, those TVs are huge. Especially this one. I don't know why the hell they got dumped right here. That's crazy. There's a ladder stand through there. Private land borders right there. There's a big ag field out that way. Pretty good. Couple of rubs on these pine saplings. It's a pretty cool little spot. Got all these pine trees, all this pine tree regeneration from these big pines. Typically don't see a lot of pines here in Kansas, at least in this part of Kansas. Another ladder stand right here. It's pretty fresh cut. They probably put it up this past season. It's a real good rub on that tree. A lot of rubs pretty much on all these trees, and there's some big historicals. This is really cool, man. I've never hunted in a pine forest. This is just one little spot, but there's another rub through there. That's a pretty good rub right there. You can tell his brow tines are gouging in there. These boys got this property covered. Or at least this little section here. Alright guys, just got back to the cabin here, spent all day scouting. Overall, pretty solid day. Didn't find anything that got me excited enough to set up over or pin a tree or anything like that, but found a lot of sign, found some bedding areas, found where the human pressure's at. I didn't see a ton of human sign until I got on that other end of the property there, but overall just a really nice property to walk through. There's a ton of different habitat types and terrain types and everything like that. Definitely wasn't planning on stumbling through a pine forest. That was pretty cool to see. But there's a couple good areas. It just, for me, nothing really clicked. There wasn't anything that was just screaming at me like, yeah, well, this is a good spot. We need to get it set up. There was always something to it. A lot of it had to do with human pressure. I think that little pine forest area there towards the end, I think that was a really good spot, and there was a couple good rubs in there, but just, I don't know, I found like 3 or 4 ladder stands, which they're all ladder stands, so maybe that means they're only gun hunting it, which that's in December in Kansas, so that still leaves a lot of the fall left to bow hunt it. So I'm not going to give up on it, but I think for now, probably just going to scratch that property off the list and kind of focus on all the other areas. But got a lot of intel. It was overall just a really solid day. Also found this little shed set here. That was cool. First one of the year. So, but overall, a lot of the rubs were on the property that I found were probably made from deer like this. I didn't see any crazy high rubs. Typically what you're looking for. Obviously a mature buck's just naturally going to be taller than a 2 or 3 year old. But did find a couple big rubs on big trees. But regardless, really good day. Got some more intel. But probably going to focus on some of the other public land around here. But not going to give up on that spot just yet. But yeah, I'm going to pack up here and head back home. But thanks for watching.